Hi, I'm Bobby Chiu, and for the past 20 years, I've been working on character designs for things like Alice in Wonderland for Tim Burton, or the Men in Black franchise, the Ghostbusters franchise, working on Super Mario Brothers for the movie, and creating my own TV show and all sorts of other things. So in this video, I want to share a bunch of the tips that I've learned over these last 20 years and hopefully help some of you along your steps of your artistic journey, or maybe you're just curious about what artists think about as we're creating characters and how do we get good. So here's some character design tips. To draw unusual and unique character designs, first, study unique people. Study people who already look more character-ish, right? Or have more unique features. Like, I'm constantly inspired by my dog Magnus. He's blind, but he doesn't care. So he's having a great time, whatever he's doing, wherever he is. And his personality really shines through. And that also inspires so much of the things that I create. Hopefully he inspired you a little bit as well. Can you really push character designs to the limit if you've never studied things that kind of push its boundaries in real life? No, of course not. Also, unique subjects will give you easier goals, which will give you better results, which will help to boost your confidence and make sketching even more enjoyable. It's very easy to draw something that looks like Hello Kitty. There's many iconic things to the design. Even if you're painting something that's completely different, it's still quite easy to make people think about Hello Kitty because its design is unique, it's iconic, it's an easy lift to get good results. However, unique characters, because they're so easy to get the likeness, sometimes it might fool us to think that we are better than we are. So it's also really good to balance it out by giving yourself some more challenging tasks, like less unique subjects, which is much, much harder. And what I mean by less unique subjects is, like, take somebody like Charlize Theron, a beautiful actor, very, very talented. But what are the really unique things about Charlize? It's actually quite hard to pinpoint anything. Now, that doesn't make her less desirable for directors to be in movies and such, but it can be difficult to capture her likeness. Which brings me to my second tip, to think in words. And what I mean by this is, what are the words, or better yet, the unique words that would best describe your subject? Think about this. What words would you use? Because thinking like this will help you to get to the essence of your subject, instead of just copying angles and exact proportions. Hopefully unique enough where if you told these descriptive words to somebody else, they would be able to guess who you're talking about. For example, somebody that is old and muscular and has a big, strong jaw and a gap in his teeth, has squinty eyes. Who is that in your mind? Was it Arnold Schwarzenegger? So taking the actor like Anya Taylor-Joy, how would you describe Anya Taylor-Joy? I would describe her as big eyes, defined cheekbones, small mouth, small nose. Eyes feel kind of slightly separated a bit more. Not in a bad way, in actually a very beautiful way. If there's any descriptions, if there's anything about that character where you feel like, you know what, this is kind of average, what I try to do is I try to think, okay, it's average, whatever. But is it leaning a bit more towards big eyes? Or is it leaning a little bit more towards smaller eyes? Is it a bit more this way, or is it a bit more that way? Even if it's a little bit more, I will try to dig that out. So even though these features might feel slightly average, it isn't completely average. And I have something in my head that I'm thinking about that will help to take that element from being average to more unique. Which is also why having a big vocabulary has its benefits, because the bigger the vocabulary, the better the communication, especially when you're working on projects that have art directors, clients. As artists that are doing work for somebody else, communication becomes very, very important. So the bigger your vocabulary, the more precisely you can describe things and make sure that your vision is the same as their vision. and vice versa. Tip number 3 is to think in shapes before details. Many times you might have a subject where there's something really glaring, like for example, these glasses, right, which people notice right away. Well, instead of going to those details first, try to struggle with figuring out what shapes, what big, bold shapes best describe your character. Even though the easiest lift would be to draw whatever shape and then add some dark rimmed glasses. Sometimes going after the very most obvious thing first creates an illusion for you about how well you can capture something's essence. Because even though you got the dark rimmed glasses well, perhaps every other detail is actually off the mark, which might be fine for that particular subject, but once you get into subjects that are less unique and you still have to capture the essence, all of a sudden it becomes quite difficult. So notice the shapes first, and sometimes even handicap yourself by not thinking about the other things and just thinking about the main shapes that you want to start off with first. What ends up happening in my head is I start to look at the subject and kind of try to overlay and imagine a general shape there to represent that subject. And then I would try to imagine a different shape and a different shape and a different shape until I get one that really clicks. And then after that, we notice details, color, texture. We notice those things last. Evidence of this is when you think about spotting somebody at a distance that you recognize. You don't recognize them because of the tiny little details. You recognize them because of their general shape. Tip number 4, don't get caught up with reference. Depending on what kind of artist you are, if you're a person that is doing art that is always based off of reference, that's totally fine. And you may have an awesome career. There are so many artists like that. However, you wouldn't be able to do what I do, which is creating things from my imagination. You know, sometimes it's good to take a step back and even draw from memory. This is a really great way to improve drawing out of your head. I remember in school, I would notice some artists that were really good at life drawing from a model. But when it came to drawing the same subject, people, out of their imagination, it was a drastic difference. They couldn't draw a person out of their head. It actually reminds me of a lesson that I would teach in my digital painting class, where we start off with a portrait and we paint that portrait. Then we paint it again in a different way. Then we paint it again in a different way, and a different way. The mirror image, while looking at it one way, you're painting the mirror image of it. We get into painting from memory. At the very end, we're painting something that doesn't actually look like the subject, line for line, angle for angle, shape for shape, but has some of the essence from that subject. You can see how it translated from the one thing to the next. And that's a fantastic exercise to do. Many of us, we only study something one time. It's like taking one little bite of a beautiful, expensive steak. It has so much value there, but in order to get that value, you have to take multiple bites, right? Every time you study the thing again, you might notice something different. You might notice a shortcut. You might notice a detail that you didn't notice originally. So study those subjects over and over again and find the joy in it. Because many high-level artists, one trait that they all have in common is that many of us, we love to do things that other people might perceive as being boring. Exercises, drills, repetition. That's what brings really solid foundation, really solid knowledge and skill. And the final tip that I want to give you is to take a class. But just make sure that the teacher knows what they're doing. People like Daniel Arriaga come to mind. He has a wonderful class, and it's a really great way to delve into his head and to not just try to figure out what is he thinking, but to hear it from the artist himself. When people put together lessons, it's like a shortcut of the learning that they've accumulated over years and years and years of experience, of thinking, of learning, all condensed into just minutes. Taking a lesson, getting a mentor. If you can do those things, that is the quickest shortcut to becoming better, to get better jobs, to have a better career. But just beware of bad actors, teachers that are teaching things that they don't actually know how to do. Now, there are some teachers out there that are fantastic teachers, even though they cannot do the thing that they're teaching. However, that category, there's few and far between, and everybody else are bad actors. People pretending to know what they're doing. And that's even worse when somebody gives you some information and says, this is true, and it's not. It could create imaginary boundaries that you don't dare to cross because somebody said you're not able to cross them. Right? And that's why kind of like the litmus test for me is to see, okay, what has that person actually accomplished with their skills? Because if they've accomplished great things, then the chances of them saying what will be truly helpful for you is far more likely. Now, if you want to learn from me, it's actually free. I have a free course on schoolism.com where it's teaching you the digital painting fundamentals using Clip Studio Paint, which is a wonderful digital painting course, especially great for people that are beginning all the way up to professional. Just my way of trying to give back to the community. And if you want to give back to me, all you got to do is like this video, subscribe, and share this video with others. And it'll encourage me to make more videos like this. All right, take care and have a great rest of your day.